Thanks everyone for joining. We're so excited that you're here. I'm Ronni Kimm. I'm the co-founder of Collective Future, and we are a strategic design and innovation studio. And we use future visioning, design, and storytelling to help people imagine what's possible in their future. And I'm also an organizer for the Speculative Futures LA chapter. And we're part of an international community of meetups. We're focused on speculative and critical design, design fiction, futurism, and strategy and foresight. And I have to write that down because there's so many there. We're currently about 50 chapters around the world. So if you're interested in becoming a part of this community, just let us know. And we started this Futures Literacy series to learn from a diverse group of expert practitioners in the field. And today we're super excited to be presenting the second part of a two-part series. The first was Afro-Futurisms 2.0 with Dr. Lonnie J. Avi Brooks. And today we're joined by Ahmed Best and the Fathomers team who are helping to conduct this workshop, Afro-Rithms from the Future, where Black Lives Matter. So I'm just going to introduce Dr. Brooks and Ahmed Best and Lacey Wozni as well, and then we'll get started. Dr. Brooks, if you haven't had a chance to review his bio, he's extremely accomplished. He's an associate professor in the Department of Communication at California State University, East Bay, in strategic communication, where he piloted the integration of futures thinking into the curriculum for the last 15 years. And emerging in recent years as a leading voice of Afrofuturism 2.0, Brooks contributes prolifically to journals, conferences, and anthologies on the subject. And he is co-executive producer and co-creator with Ahmed Best of the Afrofuturism podcast. He's also a lead organizer and creative director in Oakland for the Black Speculative Arts Movement, a national global movement dedicated to celebrating the Black imagination. He serves as creative director for California BSAM, using gaming for imaginative futures, action-oriented thinking to form community futures programs to democratize the future. And all of you are going to get to experience a piece of that today. He also has a passion for creating games envisioning social justice futures, including Black and queer liberation, with the game he co-designed, Afro-Rithms from the Future, which again, you're all going to be experiencing today. And he also serves as a research affiliate for the Institute for the Future and as a research fellow with the Long Now Foundation Long Now Foundation Group. And in the spirit of the late Congressman John Lewis, Brooks likes to make good and necessary trouble in the pursuit of democratizing an anti-racist future where Black and BIPOC futures matter. Ahmed Best is joining us today, and he is an adjunct lecturer at the USC School of Dramatic Arts. He's senior fellow at the USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. He's the host of Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge and host of the Afrofuturist podcast and CEO of BISN Media. He's a writer, director, producer, actor, musician, host, and futurist. And he also starred in the Broadway musical Stomp. He then went on to be the first CGI lead character in a motion picture starring as Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. And he's a graduate of the American Film Institute. He has won an Ovation Award, an LACC Award, a Stage Raw Award, and he's also an Annie Award winner. And lastly, I'm going to introduce Lacey Wozni. She's co-founder and director of programs and experience at Fathomers, a creative research institute dedicated to producing sites and encounters that challenge us to live and act differently in the world. For the past 2 years, Fathomers has supported Brooks, Best, and the Afrofuturist Podcast Network. And working with game designer Eli Kosminski, the team continues to play test and refine the Afro-Rithms from the game for eventual public release and distribution as a school curriculum tool. So welcome to all of you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our fearless guides and leaders, Lonnie, who I think is going to start with an introduction, and then we'll move into the gameplay. Just a couple of quick notes, if anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead and throw them into the chat. For the presentation, it may work best if you set it up to speaker view, and that way you won't have to search for who's speaking during the during the event and the gameplay. Okay, and with that, I hand it over to Dr. Brooks. Welcome.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you. Let me gonna turn on my keynote presentation here so you can see it. Can you all see my screen? And so this is, I'm gonna do that one more time because I want to talk about the Afro-Rithms or Afrofuturism journey, Afro-Rithms.com, where we're using Afro-Rithms from the future as a forecasting game centering race and anti-racism and speculative futures. So I love that. I always like to also acknowledge that the land that we occupy and have occupied, the ubiquitous and number of tribes, natives, indigenous folks that have lived here pre-contact in California. So it's really important for me to acknowledge that. Going forward, oops, let's see. Let me just optimize my screen one more time. And we'll get back to that. So let's see. Okay. So Afro-Rithms in the future comes from this idea of how we are living in what Sophia Noble calls algorithms of oppression, where the continued reinforcement of bias and anti-Blackness occurs and racism occurs through the algorithms that we have, and how Afro-Rithms in the future can shift that gaze from a white patriarchy point of view to one that is pro-Black and anti-racist and pro-BIPOC. I love this image. It's the woman on the horse who owns a horse ranch, and she protested in the uprising in Oakland on Broadway. Just love this picture. It fills me with pride to see it. Also, yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh.
Could you share your screen with us again? I'm sorry, I think we lost it.
Oh yeah, oops, let me go, All right, here we go. Let's do this, yes. Let's do this.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, that's the beautiful image of all the tribes that used to live here, or that still live here, and that we acknowledge them. And then Algorithms of Oppression by Sophia Noble. Get that book. It's important. Goes to the heart of why we do this game. And again, this image of this woman who owns a horse ranch marching down the street of Broadway in Oakland during the protests and uprisings just fills me with pride. Where Black futures matter, and that's really important. And the rise of Astro-Blackness. I just want to define this term that I did last week, which is about the rise of Astro-Blackness, where a person's Black state of consciousness is released from the confining and crippling slave or colonial mentality, who becomes aware of the multitude and varied possibilities and probabilities within the universe. And that's coined by the Reverend Andrew Rollins. We owe him a great debt of gratitude in that term. And our vibranium, from the Black Panther, really comes from our culture, where Black people have always been futurists, because we have to be. Afrofuturism aims to reclaim and transform the trauma of past atrocities against the Black and Afro-queer diaspora, and to experience Black joy as well, and Black possibility, and BIPOC possibility as well. Afrofuturism, again, combines science fiction and fantasy to re-examine how the future is currently imagined, and to envision alternative futures based on the Black experience. And let's see, okay, that happens sometimes, and I am gonna see why. Let's see, let's try this again. All right, we're gonna go. I'm just gonna do this until it works. All right, such a cultural worldview for interrogating Eurocentric motifs by Tiffany Barber and Ronaldo Anderson. And, if you get a chance, just go online and look this up. Unveiling Visions, The Alchemy of the Black Imagination is filled with beautiful, beautiful art, visions of Afrofuturism. And, you know, this happens and, you know, I'll just gonna try it again. We're gonna do this. So, okay, BSAM came out of that exhibition called the Black Speculative Arts Movement, and Radical Black Art is our futures window. And tracing the Black Fantastic involves, and I will keep doing this till it works, it involves tracing the minor key sensibilities generated from the experiences of the underground by Richard Aiton. And Future Types traces that circulating science fiction capital that's filled with promises of the future that can simultaneously constrain and unleash our imaginations. And Afro-Future Types, oops, I'm not sharing, am I? Let me see. Share, gotta share. Okay, let's see. And let's play this. All right. So Future Types is about tracing the circulating science fiction capital filled with promises of the future that can simultaneously constrain and unleash our imaginations. And Afro-Future Types are Black signals of the future that find and reclaim the traces of Black cultural visions alongside erasures of those signals. You know, being Native American and Black and Jewish, I have it all. I realized that one of the things that the reason why I don't have a official tribal affiliation is that the tribe that I belong to in Nuevo Leon in Mexico was actually exterminated through pandemics. So part of my own journey as a person is recovering that signal of my Native heritage too, and where it meets up with my Black ancestors as well. I love this as a background I use on my virtual background for Zoom is also by Menzel Bozeman, where you can see the simultaneity of the past, present, and future of the Black diaspora. Again, When is Wakanda? Afrofuturism and Dark Speculative Futurity is this beautiful poster by Stacey Robinson and part of a special issue that we did in the Journal of Future Studies by this name. And then Curating the End of the World by BSAM. It's an ongoing exhibition right now. Check it out. We'll put a link for it too. And okay, let me just come back here for a second. I'm gonna recalibrate and I'm gonna share again as well. So let me share. And okay, here we go. All right. Okay, so Democratizing the Future is our website, Afro-Rithms.com, where our slogan is Democratizing the Future. And there's a beautiful image that's created by Alan Clark, a local artist in Oakland. And for information, you can go onto that site to fill out a contact form, and also you can contact me, but we'll have our links available later too. Again, you know, we're part of the Afrofuturist Podcast Network. The idea is shifting the lens, democratizing, imagining anti-racist futures where Black futures matter. And let's preview the game that we played through our video, World Building with the Afrofuturist Podcast, beautifully edited by the Fathomers. And let's play that right now. So everyone can see the screen? Let's go. And I'm gonna play that on a different track here. I'll play that here so you can see it. And let's go. Can you see the screen now?
Share. You have to share.
All right, yeah. Let's see. Okay, here we go.
There it is.
All right, cool.
We all have agency over what the future can bring. Each of us individually can shape not only our personal future, but the future that we all live in. And the object of tonight is to get you to imagine We want to get you to get out of the frame of reference of what you think your future might be and get as creative as possible. And we're going to see what we can build using that imagination and speculative thought. And we might come up with some cool stuff. So there are people who have tension cards. These tension cards are going to establish the parameters of our universe, and we're going to choose 2 cards. Let me see, raise your hand if you have a tension card. All right, all the way back there.
More or less Black feminist leadership.
More or less Black feminist leadership. Who else has a tension card?
More or less social justice.
More or less social justice. So now that we have the parameters of our universe, we have created 4 multiverses that we can live in, all along the spectrum of those 2 choices. So now you guys in your chairs, you have inspiration cards. All right, let me see. What is your inspiration card?
Oh, I have fashion.
Okay, fashion. I like this one. I like fashion. What would be an article of fashion that would give you more Black feminist leadership and more social justice? Yes.
I was just thinking about the notion of the invisibility cloak, but also like to have it be reversed. Like it could make you invisible, but it could also make you more visible, amplifying like what you normally.
So an amplification cloak. Go. A bodysuit. What does this bodysuit do?
Protects you from any kind of harm.
How about a bodysuit that repels emotional damage? Oh shit. Okay, here we go, y'all. Let's go. Let's go. So we have a bodysuit that when anything emotional tries to come and get you, it repels it. How could it be dystopian?
Dictators could use it.
That's what
How so?
they're not feeling emotional damage, and there's no consequence to society. So it feels like it could be a very negative thing to have a suit.
Right. So that could be dystopian. Okay, I need another inspiration, another object.
Inspiration, queer liberation.
Queer liberation. Object. Who has an object? Object. Here. Buttons.
You can press the button to change your gender.
A gender shifting button. Who's with that?
Yeah.
The button should be more like, you're more on the spectrum. It's more fluid.
Yeah,
I think we're like post-binary at this.
It's not binary.
So what if the button is just like, it just regulates you through your queer liberation? It's a dial. It's not a button, it's a dial. Right?
Research has shown that we can create alternative memories that heal trauma. And how do we heal the trauma of 400 years of oppression? How do we heal any personal trauma that we've had individually, collectively? And how do we create alternative memories of the future that pull us in and create resiliency for everybody? So we see this game as potentially available in schools, colleges. I played it with my students.
I like playing it with students also because, especially your students of your Afrofuturism course, they want to be creating their own cards and their own ideas that they're putting into the game, so it's not just using what we've given them, but adding to it.
Let it become a democracy of the future for everyone, available to everyone.
All right. And with that, let's play the game.
Yeah.
Afro-Rithms.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Am I good? Am I good? How are you? How's everyone doing today? It's fantastic to see everybody on the chat. It's really lovely to see everybody entering the room and some faces that I can't see, but I know are there, of people that I know. It's very heartwarming to see you all, and welcome this morning. So what you saw in the video, I'm probably gonna say the same exact things, but it's gonna be live. So that's gonna make it a whole new and different experience. What we're trying to do is excite your radical imagination And with your radical imagination, we can completely abolish, destroy, take white supremacy, take all of those ideas that we feel are ingrained in us that are necessary, throw them away, right? That's what we're doing. And we're using the Afrofuturist lens to create, to ideate, and to imagine, right? That's what we want from you guys today. That's what we want from your radical imagination. Two things before we get started on how we play the game. Number one, there are no wrong answers. Do not worry about being wrong, okay? Do not worry about being wrong. There are no wrong answers. Number two, I would love for you all to be very un-Zoom-like and unmute your audio. That's right. Every conference meeting that you've had, every class that you've been in, every scheduled Zoom meet, they were wrong. Unmute, because we want to hear you, right? We want to hear your voice. We want to hear your impressions. We want to hear your passion, right? That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to rock. Okay, so let us set up our game. Afro-Rithms from the future. We take the multiverse theory. There are many worlds, many universes, right? The first thing we want to do is we want to define the universe that we're in. Once we define that universe, then we pick a world and we put that world in our universe. And then we think about things that would exist in our world to help us as the people who live on that world live our best lives. All right, how do we define our universe? The way we define our universe is we have these cards called tension cards, right? And our tension cards give us the parameters of our universe. Now let us see those tension cards, please. Afro-Rithms live backstage. So what you're gonna do is, when you vote, we're gonna vote on 2 of these tension cards, right? And there's a survey in the chat where you click on and you make your vote, right? Those 2 tension cards will be the parameters of our universe, right? Once we discover those parameters, we're going to discuss those parameters and talk about what those parameters mean. So go to the poll in the chat and vote on the 2 tension cards you would like to see as our universe. Is it more or less social justice? More or less Black feminist leadership? More or less migration? More or less equality? More or less ecotopia? More or less Black? Okay, so Afro-Rithms backstage. Let me know how we're doing on the straw poll.
Yes,
what does it look like?
2. We're picking 2, right? I'm at 2 tensions?
Yes, pick 2 tension cards. There we go. More or less social justice, more or less migration, more or less, okay. Oh, we're looking at ecotopia.
In the lead.
Looking good.
Followed by more or less equality.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, feminist leadership just jumped up. All right, how much time do we have backstage? Because this is just an hour show.
We have 46 votes.
You get to,
so that seems...
Okay, 46 votes. That's pretty good. All right, voting is going to be closing in 3. Get your vote in. 2, 1. That's it. So let's close the voting. Okay. So Afro-Rithms backstage, what do we have as our parameters of our universe?
More or less ecotopia and more or less equality.
Yes. Right on. So let's go to our multiverse map. This is our multiverse map. And in this arena that we have as our multiverse map, we are going to choose where in the multiverse our world lives. But before we do that, we have to define the terms of where we're going to live, right? We have to define what is ecotopia, right? And what's the other tension backstage? Ecotopia
Equality.
and equality, okay? So this is where you need to be unzoom-like and unmute. You can also use the chat if you're not as extroverted as I appear to be. So I would love to know what ecotopia means to you all. This is what I tell my students at USC. Everybody start talking at once. Just keep just talk. Everybody just say words. Ecotopia. You could start rhyming. You could say things, right? And then all of a sudden, just one voice pops out.
Healing the planet.
Okay.
Healing the planet.
Renewable energy.
Stop. Renewable energy. Who said that? Who said renewable energy? I heard that. Okay. How was an ecotopia around in new renewable energy? What does that mean?
Sweetie, you've got 2 minutes, and this is a timed. Come on, upstairs. Let's go.
Why can't I sit us down here?
I hear a baby. I hear a child and a mama. You can keep the child in the room. Kids play this game very well. Okay, so let's also use the chat when we're talking about ecotopia and renewable energy. Esteban, regenerative eco-apartheid. I like regenerative living. Who said regenerative living?
Me. Yeah.
Tell me about regenerative living.
Where everything is about regeneration, bringing back its its identity, its wildness, accepting everyone, the people, the culture, and how the plants grow, and yeah.
So being able to create, but that creation in your ecotopia must give back to the planet. So you're talking about a world with no waste. Everything is usable. Everything that we create is it's in consort with how we live. It's in consort with how we live the planet. I love this idea of regenerative living and self-healing from Erin. What does self-healing mean, Erin?
I mean, when something happens, because something's always going to happen, that we have within ourselves and within our communities the ability to
heal. We have the ability to heal not just the planet, but ourselves. Yes. I really, really, really love that. I like this idea of an ecotopia being regenerative and healing, right? And that is not just the environment, it places us as the human beings in the environment as well. Because I think a lot of times we forget that we are the environment. It's not this thing that we are outside of. And as part of the ecosystem, we need to heal ourselves. I love that. Okay, let's use that as an ecotopia. This idea of regenerative. So it's a world with no waste. It's a world where we think about creating things that feed other things. And it's also a world where we are the environment. We are integrated into it emotionally and physically. Oh, Zelda, this conscious consumption, consume what you need. I think that goes along with this idea. That's wonderful. So let's keep that as ecotopia. Let's have this idea of regeneration and healing, okay? Equality. What is equality? This is gonna be an interesting one. This equality always comes with the most ebbs and flows as of meaning. So when we say equality, what does equality mean? Everybody start talking. Everybody start talking. Everybody start typing. Just put your ideas out there. Yeah, just go. Equality. When I think equality, I think the possibility of being a part of a community with no constraints.
Aaron says everyone is seen and heard.
Everyone is seen and heard. That's interesting. Equality and then experiencing liberation. I love that. Of course, that's from Lonnie. It's fantastic. A seat at the table. David, what does that mean? David H. Yeah, you can write it or you can talk. Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I typed. I can speak as well too. Yeah, basically a seat at the table just means like, you know, everyone basically has a voice. No one is ignored. Everyone has an option to express themselves and their opinion. And it's taken seriously. It's not like, you know, somehow swept down to a lower level as if they don't count. So no social strata. It's more of a flat hierarchy as well too.
Right. So no social structure. No social hierarchy. It's kind of a society or a group where everyone's voice is equally experienced. That would be an interesting one to try to regulate as well as hear everyone. That's going to be interesting for objects. And here's my question to you, David: Are children included in that structure?
Of course. Yeah. Because intelligence starts at a very young age. So therefore, like, you know, look at Greta Thunberg, you know, the environmentalist. She's very young, right? So therefore,
yes. Absolutely. I always love the fact that children are honest, you know, with no facade, you know. I always, you know, when my child was very young, he would just say to me, like, "Daddy, I don't like this," and it's like, "What's wrong?" It's what I'm wearing is, you know. But he would be extremely honest without any type of facade or any type of thing underneath it to gain power. Yeah, it would just tell you how he felt, and I really understand that. Share understanding and participation of basic rights. Terry, what are basic rights that we should share and participate in? Can you define them?
The sense of security, like, for example, food, somewhere to live, recognition of just participation in society. So being able to participate equally in some capacity.
I think we got a world. I think we got a universe here, because I think what's being resonated is greater than like the equality of participation. It is the equality of participation plus visibility, right? We all want to be able to be seen and heard and not be discriminated against because of an idea, right? Not be left out of a situation because of what we look like. But I think it's this invisibility thing, right? It's this ability to be seen and heard and felt, you know? And I think this is a wonderful universe because we have the regeneration and the healing of the ecotopia, and we have the ability to be seen and heard of the equality. I think that's where our universe is. That's our universe, right? Our universe, when we're talking about the most possible ecotopia, right? We're talking about everything being regenerative, right? And healing being the utmost important thing, right? And when we're talking about most possible equality, we're talking about everyone being heard and every voice having that same amount of equal participation. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Where we place our world, depending on the parameters that we defined, is where we have to choose. Now, having the most ecotopia and the most equality might not be the best world for all of us, right? Because we're also talking about people's ideas and being heard. And if you don't agree with those ideas, how do you then organize which ideas of the universe we find as a community to be the most valuable? So with that in mind, where in the universe should our world be? With 5 being the most possible ecotopia and 5 being the most possible equality. Everybody start putting out numbers in the chat. What do you think? Let me get 2 numbers. Ecotopia, equality. 3, 4. Stefan, I see you. 3. 3, 4 for Terry. Oh, I love this. 4, 3 from Aaron. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Afro-Rithms backstage. Do we have a survey for this one?
We don't have a survey for this one.
Okay, well,
We've
just
got
do it.
But we're right in the 3-4 sweet spot.
Yeah, 4, 4. 5 equality, 2 ecotopia from Esteban. Ah, I know you're the guy in the debate class who would take the contrary position just to see what happens. I get it. I like you, Esteban.
No, it's not just to see what happens.
I like it.
I'm interested in exploring the realities we're facing around climate change, which is inevitable, but with amped up democracy, which we have control and agency over shaping. So I'm interested in seeing what that looks like, that we're going to have to deal with limited ecotopia, and what that looks like to play in a world where we actually are hearing all the voices and addressing that as best we can.
That's a very astute point. I really appreciate that. It's a very astute point.
I would like to take the exact opposite.
Who said that? That was good. Who wants to take the opposite?
In the exact opposite, being that maybe we do achieve a state of regenerative energy, but at the same time, you know, there are going to be varying levels of who has access to those different facilities.
That's interesting as well. That's wonderful. Okay, so
who has access to them?
We have the resources, but who has access to the resources? Okay. All right. So I think this is what we're going to do. I see a lot of 1-3s. I see 5 2s, 2 5s, 3 3s, 4 4s. I think we're going to be bold. And kind of take an aggregate. Let's do ecotopia 4, equality 3.
Yeah, sweetie.
This is going to be a bit controversial, right? It's going to be a bit controversial because I think with equality being participation and being the ability for everyone to be heard, 3 is a little bit precarious, right? So how do we take this idea of regeneration and healing and make sure the voices that are being heard are the voices of the community, right? All right. So let's this is an exciting game, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to, one, you all are very smart people and are very provocative, and I appreciate that. And 2, we're going to come up with some interesting artifacts and some interesting conversations. And that's what this is about. It's about the conversation, right? So let's go to our objects and our inspirations. And we're going to make some artifacts based on this world, right? So here are our inspirations. New modes of sensing. Janelle Monáe, designing food sustainability. And our objects, a city, tattoo, and shoe. Okay? And what I love for all of us to ideate on is taking our world, right? Our world of a great deal amount of ecotopia, right? The middle ground of equality. And equality isn't what we perceive equality to be in this the universe we live in. Equality in our multiverse that we've created, right, is about the ability to have a seat at the table, to be heard, right, and to have participation, right. So you take an inspiration, any inspiration you want, and you take an object, any object you want, and you put it in the context of our world, and you come up with an artifact, right? So, for an example, we'll have one of our team come up with an artifact, right, as an example.
Oh.
Lacey, do you want to throw out an example of an artifact?
Let's do it. I'm
Go ahead.
thinking of using inspiration, new modes of sensing, and object shoes. And how can we create an artifact that would give us more ecotopia and a good amount of equality with that combination? So I'm thinking about shoes that sense the balance or lack thereof of an ecosystem as you're walking over it or through it. So that it calls attention to what you can adjust within your control to bring balance to the ecosystem that you're in.
Right. So we're talking about the eco-empathy shoes, right? So when you're walking through an environment, and you know, just as a reminder, the environment includes us, right? Those who are living in it. And you can, the shoes will detect where we are as far as equality in the ecosystem in which we're walking through. That's great. Yeah. That's a great one. So does everybody get how to build an artifact? Yes? If so, let's start building some artifacts. And then at the end, we choose on the artifact, we choose an obelisk, which is the artifact that we all vote on is the most important artifact that we've created for this world. Okay? So let's choose an artifact.
A tattoo.
Tattoo, right? What is the tattoo inspired?
A tattoo that's inspired by new modes of sensing. So maybe it's a tattoo that can, I guess, broadcast to the world, broadcast to the world how much you've contributed to the ecotopia. So it broadcasts your level of participation in preserving the ecotopia. So if you've been more destructive or less destructive, or more sustaining or less sustaining.
What would that do to the community if we're talking about voices being heard and being unheard? What do you think what would the impact of that tattoo be?
I think that would be very negative, wouldn't it?
How so?
Well, it reminds me of China's social currency where everything's on display and it's used for public shaming. And I feel like Instagram and Facebook are already modes of that, early modes of that, and that could turn very dystopian very quick because people just can't control themselves.
What if the tattoo, right? What if the tattoo was not stable? What if the tattoo could change based on your participation in the ecotopia, right? So you have the ability to grow your tattoo to be the tattoo you want it to be.
I have a question around that, and I agree with Tito, being that it's physically attached to your, a part of your skin or your body. How does that prevent identification and whether, spatially where you are in a current place in the world, on the grid,
right.
Police, it's not just about being able to swipe and, buy stuff. It's people being able to pinpoint exactly where you are at a specific moment. And I think I like the idea of the tattoo, but only if it doesn't have any type of geographic signaling or any type of
like a geotag. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that to be built in.
But we also are in an ecotopia that is about regeneration and healing, right? So what if your tattoo can be healed by others in ecotopia, right? So rather than having it be like a geotag, right? It could be like a community outreach. It could be a call for tribal healing, right? And you can have a council that can see your tattoo and recognize that you are in need of some type of tribal healing and bring you into the ecotopia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that idea because it calls other people forth for what their special sauce is that they may not even know.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we're talking about voices being heard, right? And how your voice can be heard. If there was like a council that a council in our ecotopia that took care of your tattoo, that counselor could be anyone from a 10-year-old to an 100-year-old, right? And your tattoo can maybe display or project a color that means like, I just need a toddler to hug me. I remember when I was a kid and my mom was feeling bad, she would just grab me and hug me and cry. And I never understood like why she did it or why she was sad, right? I just knew that my mom hugging me made her feel better, right? It made her feel better. And there was something about that I was really, really okay with, right? So it's a really wonderful way, this tattoo, it's a really wonderful way to get the tribe of the ecotopia to give you a hug, right? And definitely stay on point when it comes to judgment, right? And when it comes to geotagging, right? I think what saves us from that is the fact that we are in a highly sensitive ecotopia, right? So the more judgments you get, the more healing you get. Feel me?
Question.
Let's do another artifact. That was wonderful. Thank you. Is it Raja? I think Raja froze.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
But that was a wonderful artifact. Let's do another one. Yes, please. Go.
How about shoes for designing food sustainability? So you have to walk in order, you have to walk or exercise a certain amount within your neighborhood or outside of your neighborhood and back in order to cross-pollinate different food groups and help grow for your community.
That's wonderful. Nice. So it's almost like grow shoes. You're planting stuff as you walk. Do the shoes have some sort of like soul or personality that'll take you to the neighborhood where it's needed the most?
I don't think so. I'm thinking you could accidentally, you could go somewhere and come back to your neighborhood and accidentally bring back an invasive species and destroy your entire crops. So you don't really,
that's interesting.
You don't really know yet.
Like the seeds from
That's
China.
fantastic. That's fantastic, right? So how do you know where to grow? Like, what inspires you to walk to a place where you need to plant your food? Like, what would that motivation be to do that? How do you know where to grow? Do the shoes? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, that's what I would like to bring it up to the group about. What were you thinking? I see some people are chiming in on the chat right now about how different components could work with this.
Yes, let's hear those. Lacey.
Esteban says, what if the shoes also have an olfactory component? Sense to ward off pests without insecticide.
That's interesting. I mean, would the shoes be able to smell themselves, though? I mean, you might have to change some shoes. But I like that idea about an olfactory component. It's interesting to ward off pests without insecticide. So would the shoes would experience danger? There would be an experiential idea for pests. But we also, with that, we have to be careful too, because sometimes in the ecosystem, what we consider pests would also be beneficial to growth and crops. That's wonderful, though. Ronni, you had something. Running and plant crops. Yes, I love that.
Kill a few birds with one stone.
Perfect.
I was just gonna say, I mean, whatever we're doing in this world, the technologies shouldn't be gadgets that do the work for us, right? They should all be things that move us into closer relationship with the world. So it's not that the shoes like
correct
and be like, we're just automatically planting things. Like, this is not designed by Apple. This is a thing that signals to us. It gives us information, and we use that information to have a sense of we're using our discretion, right? In order to
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
But also,
absolutely.
I think that we have to acknowledge that we are not an equal society yet. So not everyone's shoes are going to be as effective, right? So there are going to be people whose shoes are more effective at bringing about the utopia through fertilization, and some people that are not going to be able to afford the best shoes. So what does that mean?
I think we keep coming.
People who are not able-bodied to walk in these shoes.
Right.
I'm actually thinking, like, are these shoes really just for walking or for running? I mean, they could fly too, and they could go into the water to sense what's happening there. It's like, it has a sense of the eyes, to see and to sense. It's like we're thinking of this shoe as like, I'm just pushing further the future, like the shoes. If we could fly with shoes, it's easier for us to see perspectives. Where are the areas that needs growing? Where are the areas that has more violence? We can go deep down and see and maybe it can get like garbages, whatever, I don't know, waste, but we still do the movement, we still do everything. But I kind of want to like the shoe to be sort of like allows us to see perspectives from up, down, or wherever.
Yeah, I think we're thinking about shoes as pairs. And I think we could think about in our world of shoes as networks, right? So regardless of whether or not you're wearing the shoes walking or wearing the shoes flying, it's an interconnected network that gives out this information of what needs to be harvested where and what needs to be recycled where based on our ecotopia, right? So it's like a network of food sustainability shoes. And it's not just one person's pair of shoes, it's a community-based shoe network, right? What do those shoes look like? What do they look like?
shoes that can help folks who don't walk too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wheelchair wheels that do all the same things as the shoes, but for those who can't walk.
Yeah, I think shoes, we don't have to take shoes so literally, right?
Right.
Wheelchairs or wheels, we can have a systematic network of sensors inside wheels, and they could be called shoes. Shoes could be an acronym for, our food sustainability network in which we self-plan, right? And I think it's about defining those. And what I keep coming back to in our world, right, when it comes to equality and how we judge equality, and this is why I think this is very provocative as a conversation, is because what it's really helping us as this community do is go, who gets to decide, right? Whose voice is louder than the other person's voice? Who has the say over it, right? And the thing that I really love about what's happening is we all want regeneration. We all want healing. So it comes back to this collective energy, this collective council that gets to decide, right? So it's not equality based on how loud your voice is. It's equality based on a community decision. I think that keeps coming up in more artifacts, and it's just exciting to me. I really dig it. Let's do another artifact. I love the food sustainability shoes, the shoe network of food sustainability. That was beautiful. One more, another artifact. Let's get another artifact in there before we run out of time, because I could play this game all day, and you're just gonna have to stop me or shut down the internet, and I don't think you can do any of those. So let's do another artifact.
How about city? Anyone want to do city?
A farm city. Who's Flounder Lee? A farm city.
Yeah, everybody grows your food everywhere. The community gets to decide what food is grown. Almost everything in your own building, your own neighborhood.
So
it's still the density, so
you're taking,
keep sustainability by keeping everybody close.
Okay, food sustainability in city. So you're saying a food city, right? Here's why I really dig this. I had this idea a long time ago of a building. I grew up in New York City, right? And New York City is an urban jungle. It's crazy, right? Very little green anywhere. Like every time me and my brother and my sister saw any kind of grass or trees or anything, we went ballistic. We went crazy. It was almost as if we just got set free, right? There was just concrete everywhere. So I remember being a kid and imagining, and Aaron, you kind of beat me to it, these ideas of vertical farms and buildings that were made of trees that inside had fish tanks in them, because I ate a lot of salmon growing up. And I used to watch, all the National Geographic things of salmon like swimming upstream. And I was like, oh, what if salmon like swam up buildings? Would it be the exact same thing as like swimming upstream? Yeah. And so when you're talking about food sustainability cities, I think like, is it a city in which the food is inside, or is it a city where the city's a food, like Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory? Like, how he's like walking around everywhere and like pulling. One of my favorite scenes of Willy Wonka is like he grabs a teacup and then he sips the tea out of the teacup and then he eats the teacup, right? So what is food sustainability city? What is a food city constructed of?
I want to call
Anybody, just throw it out there.
Planting is rotated throughout common areas, and everyone participates for their share, and soil is regenerated through the rotation and local compost.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. Nice, and that goes along with our eco city regenerative process as well.
I just want to respond to the Willy Wonka
all
part.
buildings were farms. So they were all the buildings, the insides completely were turned into farms. So there wasn't like office spaces inside, but there was instead like these open amphitheater of vertical gardens.
That's wonderful. I want to live there now. Abner, you were saying you want to respond to the Willy Wonka comment.
I wanna open the conversation on that, like imagining like when you mentioned about like the Willy Wonka, chocolate factory. I'm reminded of this story where they can eat their planet, and it's not actually like a good image in a way, because it sort of it can actually attract greed,
Interesting.
and in a world where because it feels like there's so much more to eat because you can eat everything, and yet when I guess we have to think about like the responsibility of the people there. Are there limits to this of the resources? Because if it's everywhere, then people would not really, who will take care, who will regenerate that? What about?
So I think that's a wonderful point, right? When everything is in abundance, do we actually appreciate that abundance, or do we abuse it, right? I think that's what you're saying. Like with this pervasiveness of food culture, how do we make sure that all of us have equity over what's being grown, right? Or how do we prevent hoarding from this situation? I think that's what you're saying, Abner. What do you think would be a good mechanism when we're talking about, equality, regenerative healing? What would be a good mechanism for our world to have in our food city?
Tito says vehicles are powered by food garbage.
Yeah.
And we can grow vehicles and house structures with mushroom cells or mycelia.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Who don't want to drive a mushroom car? I want a mushroom car right now.
But we also
I'll drive a mushroom.
We also have our sensing shoes, so maybe they're made from the mushrooms.
Oh,
the ones that are
yeah.
flying us around, so we don't need vehicles anymore.
Everything's mushrooms.
It's
all mushrooms.
Everything mushrooms. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Fungi rule.
What if it
I wanna just jump in for 1 minute because I know people are having to jump off. So we're gonna go over for a few more minutes and also have a little Q&A session if people have questions. So if you need to jump off now, I just want to thank you for joining us. And I'm just gonna throw up a screen really quick so that you guys can keep in touch with everyone who has been a part of this in running it. So there's Afro-Rithms from the future.org, which is a website for this game and for this world building game. And then some contact information for Lonnie and Ahmed and the Fathomers, and of course for us. So please, don't hesitate to follow everyone who was running this fantastic game. And we're gonna stay on for a few more minutes. But if you need to jump off, we understand, and we hope to see you at our next event. Okay, sorry for rudely interrupting. And Lacey has thrown up a survey just so that they could get some feedback in terms of your experience and sort of whether or not you enjoyed the game or what you got out of it. Okay, I'm sorry, I rudely took over the screen from.
No, completely understood. Completely understood. This always happens. We get into the groove of the game and everybody starts like getting comfortable and talking, and then it's like, that's it, it's over, everybody out.
Yeah.
But the thing that's exciting about that is we get to engage everyone in a way that is not just thought-provoking, but positive. And we recognize that the ability to ideate and the ability to create is really just about what you decide creatively to ideate off of. And the constraints that we put on ourselves are ideas, right? All constraints, all hurdles, all objects that we feel like in our way are all ideas, regardless if they're physical and tangible or imaginative and non-tangible. They are all ideas. And the only way out of an idea is with another idea. And this is a way we can just excite you in your idea, right? So I don't know if we have time to vote on the artifact. Dewey, Afro-Rithms Backstage, Dewey.
Yes, go for it.
Or should we?
The link is in the chat.
Wrap it up. So here's what we're gonna do. The link is in the chat. We have the 3 artifacts that we talked about. If you click on the artifact that resonates with you, the world, right? Play multiple rounds, right? But for right now, we're playing 1 round. And so go to the straw poll, vote on the obelisk that resonates with you the most, and the obelisk that gets the most votes will be the obelisk of our world. Got it? Backstage, can we throw up that straw poll so we can see real-time voting, like we're watching like CNN or something, and we got like a big iPad where we can like look at numbers.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Symbiotic Food City is huge.
Yeah, yeah. There's more opportunities to come on now.
Let's vote. Get your votes in.
I'm ready for the shoes, but I like the city.
I know, right? I don't know which one to vote for. I'm not voting. I'm abstaining. I'm just
okay.
I
voted.
I am
I
just here to guide. I am not here to influence. The Eco Broadcast Tattoo is actually very good as well. I mean, all of these are so fantastic. I don't even know how you're voting. This is crazy. All of these are so good. How much time do we have backstage for the votes? Symbiotic Food City is killing it.
Soon.
All right, voting is going to close in 3, 2, and that's it. It's over. Symbiotic Food City is our obelisk. And I think that's a very, very good one because that's the obelisk that I think really defines the world we created. And it's a wonderful thing to represent our world, because we are talking about sustainability, we are talking about regeneration, no waste, but we're also talking about this cooperation, right? And the thing that I love about growing up in the city and being part of a city was you have a whole bunch of people cooperating and making this thing go. And we forget that the things that we take for granted are the things that require the most cooperation to do, and we don't see, right? So I really, really, really love this obelisk. And I really love all of y'all for playing our game today. We really, really appreciate it. Every time we play this game, we learn something new. Every time we hear your voices and we hear your ideas, we get inspired to do more. And this type of work that we're doing, we want to establish in everybody with this little hour, as you go forward into the rest of your day, that the constructs of our world that we build for ourselves are predicated on ideas. Racism, white supremacy, these were all radical ideas that have been imposed on us. And in these, en masse, not individually, but en masse, that we have to take these ideas into consideration to move forward. It takes a radical imagination and a radical idea to eradicate another radical idea. So if we are actionable, if we are radical about changing the situation in which we are living in, it's possible. All we have to do is imagine it and make it. Thank you all so much for playing Afro-Rithms from the Future. We're sticking around. So please ask questions, because Lonnie's really smart and way smarter than me, and he'll answer everything. He knows it. He knows everything.
I just want to give you guys a round of applause. That was amazing, both for the facilitators and for everyone who joined. I know that we were just getting started. And now I want to do like a half-day session where we can really like dive into it. But so we are coming to a close. If anyone has any questions, feel free to just raise your hand or to throw it in the chat. I'm going to start off with one while everyone's sort of formulating their thoughts. And you already have an invitation, team, to go to the School of Architecture at USC. So that's oh, that's fun. Okay, Luciana, go ahead. Ask your question.
Well, I'm here talking from my kitchen in São Paulo, and I just want to say that this was amazing. So I'm an architect and urban designer. I teach at USC School of Architecture. And Ahmed, I would love it. We have our midterm review, and I think everything that you guys were talking about, this food vision, we have a site in Lamar Park, and I'm pushing the students to have that vision, and it's been fascinating. The work, we do have to do all the structure, the building and everything, which is a social justice center. And the students are bringing these parallel programs, and many of the students want to work with the idea of food and farming and mushroom farming and how waste collection and waste producing energy. So I think just to let everybody know, those thoughts are out there, and us as educators, we are pushing the boundaries for sure. And I just want to thank for all the discussion here. That was really amazing.
Obrigado.
Awesome. Aaron also has a question.
Yep, I was just wondering how we bring this to our communities, especially after hearing things like the debate last night. I think there's so much opportunity to try to change the way conversations take place.
Yeah, I watched the debate last night, and I thought I was going to feel depressed waking up this morning, but I really felt energized, especially coming here and doing this, because it just really, really proves that it is an imagination that is running this country, and it's a radical imagination that is detrimental to us all. And I am very, very fired up and very excited to bring my radical imagination to the conversation, because I know there are more of us who think in a community and healing and togetherness cooperative way than there are of them. And if you think about it, we've never lost a fight. It's taken a long time for us to win, but we've never lost a fight. The Voting Rights Act, the Equal Rights Act Amendment, the abolishing of slavery, the Civil Rights Act, like all of these things, we won. I'm of the belief that conservatism inherently is antithetical to the human experience, right? It's hard to sustain. 50 years ago, segregation was conservative, right? And now it's kind of this fringe idea, right? And even if it is in their heart, segregation, they can't say it out loud unless you have a crazy person like we saw last night, right? And even so, the backlash is deafening, right? So every fight we get into when it comes to equality, we've won. We're undefeated, right? We're like the LeBron James of civil disobedience. And I'm not about to lose right now. I'm not about to lose right now. So how do you bring this conversation to our communities? Well, Ronni, and now Ronni knows us, and you can contact her, you can contact us. And we are developing a tabletop version of this card game called Afro-Rithms from the Future. And the beta of the game will be released very soon. We're very close to releasing the beta. And you will be able to play this game with the cards wherever you are.
I love that. That's awesome. I'm glad you said that as well, Ahmed, because I was going to ask you about the sort of release version when it goes out into the public. I think we have time for one more question. I see Raja has had her hand up, so go ahead, Raja.
Something that intrigued me from like the video clip, and something that I sort of geek out over with my students. I teach a product design course. I run a product design program, but I teach a course focused on like climate change and climate fiction, looking at speculative design, is the radical imagination of the villains. And so thinking about dystopias and what brings them about, and what are those triggering events where there is no return, right? I know you're talking about it from a point of optimism, and I am an optimist, but I'm always wondering what the people who are not so invested in the good of all are thinking about. And so I'm interested to know your experience playing this game, what the other side of this looks like. So I know a lot of the folks in participating here were definitely pushing for more equality, more, more eco-utopia, not the dystopia, where there's someone who's usually in the margins who's plotting against. So I'm just curious about how that usually plays out when this game is played.
As a writer and a director and a teacher, I teach at USC as well. I teach film at the School of Dramatic Arts. What I tell my students when they're talking about writing stories with villains is every villain is a hero in their own story. So villains aren't pessimists. Villains are optimists. They believe that their point of view is the right point of view. So attacking a villain, thinking that they're a villain, is not going to work. They're going to double down because they believe they're the hero. And
it's the Thanos effect.
Exactly. And, when you watch Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame, Thanos kind of has a point. And I know a lot of people don't really, talk about it that way, but he's got a point. I remember watching Thanos going, I'm the only person strong enough to make this decision. How many of us have been in that exact same situation? We've had to make a tough decision that nobody else could make, right? And what Thanos was talking about was sustainability. Now, the facts weren't on his side, but he had to believe, and he believed that he was a hero, right? How do you dispel the villain who believes that their way is the hero's way? You find common ground. And that's the most difficult thing to do with someone who is, who you perceive to be on the opposite spectrum of your thoughts and your beliefs. But the easiest way I found is you find common ground. And no amount of facts, no amount of proof, no amount of how right you are is going to sway them into thinking your way. So common ground is a place to start from. I did a seminar. I sometimes work with the National Academy of Science, and I did a seminar with a paleobotanist. And someone asked him a climate change question, like, how do you deal with people who don't believe that climate change is real? And, this is a guy who looks at climate change in the millions of years, So he recognizes the climate change that happened 1 million years ago in San Francisco, or what would have been San Francisco, and what climate change looks like right now in San Francisco, has all the numbers, has all the examples, and a PhD after his name. And people are just like, yeah, bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you talk to that guy? You talk to that guy while you're fishing, and there are a lot less fish in this lake, and you want more fish in the lake, don't you? Well, here are the things you can do to get more fish in the lake. And even though you're coming from it from a climate change point of view, the guy just wants to catch more fish.
Yeah, that's a
so
great
common
story.
ground is where I go.
It's so important.
Zelda had a comment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Zelda,
sorry,
go for it.
Yeah, hi guys. So Raja, kind of adding on to your thought, I really see what we're going through in terms of just pure power struggle. We're asking people to give up their power and privilege. And I don't know that I would if I were in their place. Of course, there's a denial and what have you, but that's really what it comes down to. And so with regard to this game, it's kind of interesting for me to think about, or Ahmed, when you're asking people to play, is there any sense of how people process giving up power, how people process, you know, negotiating space where they're going to literally lose? Because our culture it's been ingrained in our culture that the world is a zero-sum game. You're either winning or losing. So I just wonder.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And as we discussed today while we played the game, we ended up in this kind of middle zone. But we were thinking about how, as a collective, how to regulate so that there is no power structure, rather than how to ideate to a power structure. So what we like to do in our game is to take the ideas of what power is in the universe that we live in right now and move it to the left, and realize that the ideas of social structure, the ideas of power structure, the ideas of the haves and the have-nots are things that we defined, are things that we agreed to as a society. And we can agree out of those things, right? It's like the dollar. The dollar has absolutely nothing backing it whatsoever. It's us. It's our idea. It's just like, here's a dollar, give me the thing. Because we've all decided, you know, the dollar was taken off of the gold standard, the sterling standard years ago, you know? But we all decided that it had value, right? We are all agreeing to this thing. Let's not agree to it. It's that easy. But all of these other things get in the way. But if I do, who gets what? Right? So our game is to really drive home this point. We live in a construct that we agreed to. We live in a construct that we created, right? And it only takes an agreement and imagination to create another one. And it's that easy, right? And the game shows you how easy it is. Now, it's oversimplified. You know what I'm saying? Like, we haven't talked about taxes and, you know, money and haves and have-nots, but I always go back to Star Trek. You know, I'm a big Star Trek fan. And in Star Trek, the currency is human experience. And in this game, I want us to experience what a world with the parameters that we create feels like, right? And then take that experience and come back to this world and see how you can use that experience to create parameters in your world that you feel a radical imagination can enhance.
Then if I may suggest, and I definitely agree with everything you just said, I would like to suggest that this be part of the presentation or part of the, you know, the setup of the game, because in our world, our competitive world, games are played to be won or lost.
Yes, absolutely.
And so people come with that mindset, and there's this tension, and actually you intuitively refer to that with the words more or less, but there's always this tension. How do I win this game? What's in it for me? What am I giving up by playing this game? And I think the scenarios you're building, and I'm a total Trekkie, okay? I'm just like, hey. I think that could be brought out. It could be brought out.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Yeah, what a wonderful point. And what a great place to end on, with really thinking about and playing with the radical imagination. Thank you so much, Lonnie, Ahmed, Lacey, and the Fathomers team, Aaron and Chinello. Yes, thank you so much. And to everyone who joined us today and participated and for all of your thoughts. We'll definitely be sending out a recording of this and also share some of the different references that Dr. Brooks shared with us in the beginning of the talk, and also links to the game in case you want to learn more or follow just the progress of how it's going. So thanks again so much.
Thank you, Ronni. Thank you for bringing us. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you for bringing us. You're doing some wonderful work. We really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. We're just really thrilled and honored to have you here. So hopefully we will see all of you at our next event. We'll be making announcements for those, and we hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday and rest of the week. Stay strong and stay imaginative.